Hello, this is Rachel Cipriano coming to you again from Magnificent Resilience. I want to talk to you today about the 4 quadrants of resilience and 2 quadrants in particular. So first of all, the 4 quadrants are your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. Technically, we could put a 5th quadrant in there. Financial is kind of part of our health as well. As we know from this current crisis we've all been in, there is a seriously adverse effect that financial hardship has on resilience and those 4 quadrants of health: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. They've been able to determine that through records and research regarding any kind of economic downturn, from the Great Depression. Of course, we've all heard about those suicides of people diving out the windows, to the Rust Belt crisis and all the adverse effects it had on suicidality, the addiction problems, alcohol problems, domestic violence, divorce, on and on it goes. So really, in all fairness, financial probably is its own pillar. But today we'll just talk about the 4, because I like to give this analogy of what would happen if you went out to get your car from the parking lot to drive home and you noticed there was only 1 tire, or even 3 tires. If you didn't have all 4 tires, you wouldn't be able to get to where you need to go. And I give that analogy of that's how it is with our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. And specifically today, I want to talk about how your mental and emotional health have a very interesting synergistic relationship that has been supported by a lot of neuroscience and other research that demonstrates a lot of times if you are experiencing depression, anxiety, and guilt, and all kinds of emotions we know that drain you and bring your resilience down, it's very hard to just emote your way out of that state, to tell yourself, I'm not going to feel depressed, I'm not going to feel sad, I'm not going to feel angry, I'm not going to feel resentful. That's difficult to do. However, if you take that mental quadrant, think about what you're thinking about. I tell my clients, put that pen to paper and journal. Find out what that stream of consciousness in your mind is. A lot of times we don't even realize the junky thoughts we're thinking and how those thoughts are creating our moods. There's a whole branch of psychology, the cognitive behavioral psychology, that's very research-based, and people like Aaron Beck and Albert Ellis, who I had the opportunity to see in college, and so many others. More modern day, we have David Burns, who wrote the book Feeling Good, one of the best mental health books ever on the market. Martin Seligman, his work with positive psychology. We know through that tremendous, very sound, double-blind research studies that our thoughts affect our moods, our behavior, and let's face it, our lives. Now, the thing is, you can change your thoughts. You can change those thoughts a lot easier than you can change your emotions directly. So it's kind of a back door to building your resilience, to start challenging your rational beliefs, challenging your thoughts. Ellis talked about how we have these 3 dysfunctional thought patterns that almost universally people deal with. And it's that I must be treated well. Other people must treat me well. The world must treat me well and fairly. And if it doesn't, then my life is miserable. He encouraged us to challenge these notions because they're simply not true. You don't have to be perfect. Everybody doesn't have to treat you fairly. The world doesn't have to treat you fairly. I'm sure most of you listening to this knows that those kinds of thoughts that Ellis contended through extensive research the vast majority of people hold are a setup for disaster, because the world isn't fair. And there are a lot of people who don't treat us very nicely. They're called toxic people. And in the majority of cases, they're just broken, hurting people themselves. Although I firmly believe there are those dark people who, they're just mean, and to be avoided, whether that's because they're broken or because they're evil. They're just, you want to limit your contact with people like that, because the reality is that's the part you can do to take responsibility for your health and for your resilience. You've got to guard those thoughts that are in your mind. You've got to guard your emotions. You've got to guard your physical space. And when you bring people into it that have a second occupation of complaining and putting others down as a means to perhaps feel better about themselves, or just as a reflection of what they're doing to themselves and displacing it onto other people, whatever their reason is for exhibiting that toxic behavior, that doesn't matter. What matters for you to know is that a steady diet of being around people like that is very detrimental to your resilience and to your health. So you got to guard what's going on in your own mind, and you got to change that, and you got to be really protective of who you allow to share your personal space. Now, we know there are situations, we go to our jobs, and those toxic people are there. And I've known people, and myself, I thought, I'm going to quit that job and get a different job. And there's somebody that was just like that other person. So it's because, first of all, we can learn from those people, but that doesn't mean for a second that we don't want to limit our time with them as much as possible, to set those firm boundaries, because we need to take responsibility for our health, our wellness, and our resilience. So I wanted to share about the quadrants today. I'll briefly touch again on how the mental and the emotional interact together in a very powerful and unique way. And obviously, that affects the physical as well. We know through those exercise research studies that getting out there and getting active, walking, riding a bike, jogging, running, whatever you find, and then the benefits are exponential if you do it out in nature. They call it green exercise. You're going to get that boost also to your mental, emotional, spiritual health. And I'll just touch on spiritual health for a second. It can encompass faith. It certainly does for me. But even for somebody who might be listening and you don't have those beliefs, maybe you're an agnostic or an atheist or a secular humanist, whatever the case might be, you still can have a spiritual dynamic to your life in the way of how you treat other people. Empathy, compassion, giving back, altruism. Those are parts of life that encompass spirituality, and they affect the other pillars as well, the other quadrants as well, your physical, mental, and emotional health. So it all interacts together. And what's interesting, and what I share in my presentations, is how you create a super value proposition through cultivating altruism. Because that's what a value proposition is, how you're going to solve your company's problems, your workplace's problems. And an altruistic person has a service orientation, and they're actively seeking how they can better the world and their space around them. Whereas somebody who's not altruistic, somebody who's more self-centered or even narcissistic, they've got themselves on the mind all the time. Well, who in that is that company going to want to have work for them? An altruist or a self-centered person or even narcissist? Hands down, the altruist is going to have a competitive advantage. So I just want to share about the quadrants today. Again, we can throw in that other pillar I mentioned, or quadrant, financial. Think about what I'm saying. You do what I'm talking about with the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, and you're going to position yourself for far more financial success. You see, all these quadrants of resilience work together. So please take this in, please share, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Really easy to do. Just go to the channel and there's a subscribe button. You can even hit a bell for notifications when I publish videos. And please comment. We need to get a dialogue going because this world needs a lot more resilience, a lot more altruism, a lot more strength. Rachel Cipriano with Magnificent Resilience. Please like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.